Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and I'm here in my kitchen to do my comic book countdown. I want to get back on that weekly comic book countdown, but this one is running late. This is gonna cover the 10 comics I bought on Wednesday, December 29th. And I've already started reading the first comics of the new year, but I haven't got too far in those, and I finally just today, or was it yesterday, finished the last of this stack. My book, and as usual, this is totally subjective, just based on what I enjoyed reading the most to the least. But starting with the least, number 10, Human Remains, and this one was the hardest for me to get around to because I'd been putting off reading it. I had two other issues that I had to read, so I had to read all three of these in a row. And I have real mixed feelings about this, actually, but mostly it's a disappointing read. It's written by Peter Milligan, who is a author who's always doing something interesting and at times stuff that's very impressive. But this sort of sci-fi horror story seems a bit lost in a fog of vagueness, and it's not helped by the very indie style artist that Peter Milligan is working with this time around. So I have trouble at times telling if one character is the same character from a previous scene or a different character. Usually the composition of the panels is not particularly interesting. The facial expressions are lacking. I don't even feel like the scenes with the monster or the scenes where people are killed are kind of confusing, so you're not always sure. And I remember when I read the first issue, and there was a wedding party, I thought everybody at the wedding party was slaughtered, but later we actually follow a bunch of people slaughtered by this alien. We follow a bunch of people from that wedding party into the rest of their lives. And so I'm very unclear, even after 4 issues, of how many people are really killed by this monster, how often it comes and reacts to human emotions. Like, it was a great idea that people have to damp down all their emotions, or instantly some alien will come out of a swirling vortex and kill them. But it just has not been delivered well. In terms of the artist, like a really telling scene for me, this is from an earlier issue, was there's a caption here, but you see the expression on the faces of the people in this caption, in this panel. But the caption says, "The fury, the hatred, the fear." But those faces are not expressing very much at all. And there's just not the information that you need in a comic is not working for me that well. I think this artist would be perfectly fine for some other kind of more low-key story, but there's definitely something missing. And I don't entirely blame the artist. I'm not sure who's entirely to blame, but I feel like Milligan is not helping things much in terms of clarity. And it's too bad, because I think there's a lot of interesting thematic material here about, and I like the large cast of characters and from different backgrounds and such, and how they all kind of also interconnect. But there's a lot about, what makes relationships work and not work, and guilt, and I don't know. Milligan is trying to put a lot of stuff in here. As I talk, I now feel like I should stick with it just to see what he does. But I don't know. I feel very frustrated by it. And I don't know whether this monster probably works for some people. For me, it seems so, I don't know, bizarre. Okay, talking about monsters, my number 9, and I feel almost guilty for ranking it this low. Kaiju Max. This is Kaiju Max Season 6, number 5. I've read all the seasons. In Season 1 and Season 2, maybe even Season 3, it was always my top book. But I have, both in Season 5 and now particularly Season 6, just sort of, it's not pulling me in. I'm particularly now in this season, I can't follow all the threads. I have trouble picking back up to where we are as we keep skipping around to different characters. And I think starting in the previous season, but in this shows even more here, our perspective of the universe that we're in is too large. Like there's too many dimensions and other things, and it just doesn't feel like it all fits together very well. So sadly, obviously, I've stuck with this for over 30 issues, and it will soon be all done. So just one more issue, and the whole thing will be done. So I guess I will stick with that. And also, it may hold together a lot better in some rereads because I bought all the giant hardbacks for Kaiju Max that have previously come out, so I might as well get the last giant hardback, and then I plan to reread the whole thing. So, in at number 8 is the Sword of Hyperborea. I never know, not sure. Hyperborea. Part of the BPRD Hellboy world. And I knew going in that I would probably be confused on this. I couldn't resist because it was this little side story that I've seen bits and pieces of in the parts of BPRD that I've read about this character Howards, who has been reincarnated from some primitive time with his magic sword. And this promises to be a book that follows the different adventures of the sword throughout time leading up to the present day. And that's kind of a compelling type of thing for me. I like that idea. The art was really good by Lawrence Campbell. And, it was a very quick read, and there's some fun stuff in here, but even though I've read about some of the stuff about Howard's and his flashbacks before, I wasn't able to fill in the context enough. So it was an intriguing but frustrating read, and since it promises to jump around through time, I doubt it will become that much clearer to me as we go along. But I'll decide month by month whether to pick it up if I'm in the mood, depending on how much I have to read. Because I just like some of the feel of it. But it's too bad for me anyway. I just constantly have this problem with the various Mignola books that he and his team can't do more to give you a little better context when you pick up a book that connects to another book that came out years ago that you may or may not have read. In at number 7 is Once and Future, the latest, number 23, for a wild romp kind of book. It's amazing that we keep going with this excellent art and color team, especially since Dan Mora, the artist, is also working at DC. I'm not sure. He must be one of the much faster artists. I'm not sure how he does both stuff at Detective Comics, I believe, and here. I'm so glad he has not left this book when DC came calling. He's definitely one of the more exciting sort of mainstream, if you will, artists out there right now. And really, really clicks with colorist Tamara Bonvillain, as we say every time any of us talk about this book. It was just another chapter in the endless saga of all these different versions of Arthurian legend, all of which are horrific, kind of clashing. I enjoyed it. I like some of these others, I have the lingering feeling I would enjoy it more if I read it all together or reread it so I could make all the connections better. It's kind of a shallow book. It's not. It's going more for adventure after adventure after adventure, fight after fight after fight, with not enough resting points and stuff. Again, all stuff I've said before. In at number 6, I didn't know if I was going to pick this up at all, is Human Target. Because the smarter part of me says, wait for the trade. This is a a dollar extra book, I guess because of the thicker covers or just because Tom King's name is attached to it. So it'll be much more affordable to get in trade. But I am seduced by the art. I guess all of these, I was seduced by the art. I'm super seduced by the art by Greg Smallwood. This cover is my favorite cover of the month, I think, or the month that was, December. And the whole feel of the artwork, I've already raved about it before, continues here. It's so weird when you see ads in the middle. It's so jarring. But like this page here is a perfect example. Love what Greg Smallwood is doing with lighting, with composition. The style gives it that, 50s pulp vibe, for want of a better word. A lot of this is about the jealousy of Green Lantern. I want to say Kyle Rayner. It's not Kyle Rayner. Guy Gardner, sorry. The Green Lantern Guy Gardner, and how he can't get over his relationship or non-relationship that he had with Ice. And so he's basically stalking and harassing Ice and the Human Target, who have apparently started a relationship, or is the Human Target just keeping her close by because he thinks she might be the person who killed him. We get an appearance by Booster Gold. If you're not watching closely, you don't realize Booster Gold is the patsy here and has... I don't know if I should give it away, but he has something slipped away from him by the Human Target, and it's an important plot point that leads us to the end. So it was a bit clever. I did find the portrayal of Guy Gardner to be kind of too easy, the jerk and the stalker, and I don't know. I would have liked some subtlety there, but we didn't get that. But I guess that's being picky. This is a very stretched out book. For reading it just for the story, it would be pretty frustrating. But if you enjoy kind of the pacing of it, the feel, it goes for the feel and atmosphere, and the artwork is what gives us that, makes it all work, then I think it's a good book. At least there's no ad on the back. I think we get this same calendar picture on each issue with another day crossed off because he has 12 days to live. I'd love it if he really dies, but anyway, everything that happens in a Tom King book probably doesn't really count. So talking about it there, now I almost wish I had ranked it higher, but there we are. I've already put it out there. So at number 5, as I was compiling this list, I said, my bad, that I enjoyed that more than Human Target. But now that I've talked about it, I'm not sure if that's true. But I put my bad at number 5. This is a light lark. I have found that I had to sort of briefly reread previous issues to sort of remind myself of what happened before, even though there's nothing. It's all kind of a bit of it's just a bit of silliness. It kind of makes me think of a slightly updated superhero satire from the 1960s, a little bit like Not Brand Ec, a little bit like the Inferior Five, maybe more like the Inferior Five from DC Comics, and I enjoy reading it. It's funny because I often complain about Tom King because I feel like he doesn't really believe in heroes and he makes fun of them. Here, the whole point is to point out the absurdities of the whole concept of superheroes. Something that's obviously been done many times before, but here that's what it's about. It's not pretending to explore the real superheroes. It's making fun of pretend ones. So that, which sounds silly. I know they're all pretend. So anyway, the hero, the chandelier, who's an heir of a lamp fortune, and the villain who just this guy who calls himself the king. what does he call himself? The something king, I forget. It's a fun, dependable read. It's by Mark Russell, and a co-writer, Bryce Ingram. So they take turns, and then the art's by Peter Krause, who does a very good job of kind of capturing the right tone for this. It's divided up into various chapters, and some of the chapters are written by Mark Russell and some by Bryce Ingman, who I hadn't heard of before, but who does all the chapters seem equally fun to me. In at number 4 is The Death of Doctor Strange. Oh, look at the ripples on that cover. Yeah, with a Marvel comic, the other comics are pretty sturdy these days. I don't feel in a rush to bag and board them. With a Marvel comic, I've got to put it in a bag and board as soon as possible, if I care about keeping it in good shape. So last issue, the art really took a downhill dive, but it seems to be better in this issue. It still feels a little more hasty than, in some better comics, but or comics with better art. But the art works well. It's kind of evokes a little bit of the past, a little bit of the Steve Ditko era and some other eras, just a touch of it. And I also feel like in a previous issue, the coloring went downhill, and they seem to do a better job here. But mostly, it's very clever, fun writing by Jed MacKay, who really, he takes his basic premise that this sort of magical shard of Doctor Strange, created way back at the beginning of Doctor Strange's career, before he even met Clea or anything like that, was preserved in the event of Doctor Strange's murder to magically appear and then solve the murder. And Jed MacKay does a great job of finding ways to play on the weirdness of that, and how the shard of Doctor Strange must be feeling, and how people now close to him feel as they're interacting with this past self of his. That's what sort of gives the whole story its makes it more than just a little murder mystery with superheroes, or a superhero story with cosmic beings from another dimension who are no doubt going to destroy us at any moment. Like, ever since Galactus in the Fantastic Four, we've been having that happen over and over and over again now. So what makes this a tasty story is how he handles that plot element of the fish out of water, who is a part of Doctor Strange. So I really enjoyed that. If the art were, stunning like it is in a lot of the comics I got, it might have, been up even higher. But it was up against pretty stiff competition. Number 3 was this Black Label Swamp Thing Green Hell, written by Jeff Lemire. Incredible art by Doug Mahnke. I was going to put this at number 1, and I just kept flip-flopping in my mind, so in the end I put it at number 3. Starting with the art, I've liked Doug Mahnke's artwork here and there before, and that's part of why I picked this up. But I was not prepared for what a great job Doug Mahnke is doing here. Perhaps, I don't know, I haven't looked at all of Doug Mahnke's artwork, but this might be kind of career-defining artwork, or artwork that confirms the importance of his career in modern superhero comics, or DC Comics. I enjoy the bigger size. I enjoy the artists, that the art really gets to stretch across the page and everything. I think it's not just bigger, but maybe different proportions than a regular comic. Sometimes this, in some of these, it seems too long. Like, it seems hard to get through a chapter that's 48 pages. There's no page numbering here, but I think it's 48 pages. 48, 50 pages, sometimes feels too long, but it didn't here. It felt like the right length. I was perfectly fine with the near the final pages, because this takes place in the future, bringing back some old characters from the regular DC characters. But when I was talking about it with Comic Crack on the Hangout we did, he was complaining about that. And then I was like, yeah, it might have been cooler if it just stuck with the future and had, other than the various parliaments, the red, and the green. I think there's also a mold parliament, but I don't think they bring that into here. Someone added a mold parliament at some point. Spot varnish. It could have been a good story, not connecting so much to the elder characters from DC, but it didn't really bother me. I might have, if I hadn't listened to Comic Crack, maybe it would be at number 1, but I don't think so. It's pretty tough to beat my top 2. At number 2, I put the Morphomedesis issue of Ice Cream Man. It is the inverse of the Metamorphosis, but I assume there's no actual word Morphomedesis, that he just was playing with language there, which I appreciate. This cover is odd, with so much of the cover taken up by the back of this TV. Although it is neat, there's a cockroach there, which is perhaps a little hard to see. My only complaint about this issue is some of the coloring by O'Halloran. And O'Halloran is a colorist that I flip-flop on. I've seen him on a bunch of comics lately, and sometimes he does a wonderful job. Other times he does this sort of, gray-toned, brownish stuff over everything that does not work for me. But anyway, overall, this was a brilliantly drawn and brilliantly written issue where a cockroach turns into a human being. And just yet another way to sort of make a commentary about human existence, the middle-class rat race of life for a lot of people in the United States, the difficulties of marriage and being a parent and all of those things wrapped up into a cockroach turning into a human being. So a lot of fun, very satisfying read. We'll see how much long Ice Cream Man, will that go on forever? I don't know. And then at number 1, I put Echolans. As I said in my 2021 wrap-up, which I included a peek at this issue in that, Echolans might be a comic with just really great, innovative art, or ultimately it could prove to have a really great, innovative story also. But if there's a flaw, it's that they're making what they're up to a little bit hard to. It might be a good thing or a bad thing that they're making a story that it takes the reader a while to discover what the real scheme behind the whole story is, if you know what I mean. On the surface, it's a chase. Some thieves have stolen something owned by the most powerful magician in this world, and he's chasing after them, and they're running away, and they're going through various places and kingdoms on their journey. So we get kind of a tour of things. Now, is the story up to something more than just that? I think it is, but we'll see in time how they pull it off. This issue had a thing that for a second kind of bothered me. There's one story going up here in the upper tier, and another story going on in the lower tier for almost all the pages of the book. And after 2 pages, I realized, okay, I'm just going to read the upper story first, and then I'll go back and read the lower story. And that worked out best for me. I might reread it and read both stories concurrently and see how that goes, but I really enjoyed reading the 2 stories separately, and you can see this different artwork. We're exploring some of the characters have split off from each other. We're exploring different sort of lands and worlds that they've plopped into. I am fascinated by this idea of this world that kind of has every type of story mishmashed together into the world, all kind of plopped on top and over each other. So read separately, each of them read as interesting chapters in the book. It did feel like I got 2 comics for the price of 1. The bottom story was more complete, whereas the top story was more kind of a resting point in the chase as with some chances for more character beats and some other explorations of little mysteries here and there. But yeah, I still really, really enjoy Echolans. I do just have, as I say, that question mark in my mind. In the end, after I recommend this month after month as one of the best comics ever, will it end up me saying, it was good, but not the greatest in the world? Or it could end up being, the next best thing since the invention of the sandwich. But anyway, having a ton of fun reading Echolans. It's also a $1 extra compared to most comics, a $5 comic like whatchamacallit, the Human Target. But with Echolans, I feel like I spend a whole lot more time with this comic. I get a whole lot of pleasure over going back, flipping through the pages, and on rereading issues. So for the money, for me, it's a great value. I do not read the back matter anymore. It's almost obsessive. Every issue, every album that J.H. Williams played during the month or so, or however long it was that he drew this issue. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it takes more than a month to take these issues. And I don't know, this has been coming out very steadily, but I'm assuming they'll eventually take a break so that he can catch back up. And then maybe I'll go back someday, there are these, I think they're fictional interviews with characters related to the book, but every time I've tried starting to begin to read them, I would lose interest quickly. And an extensive letters page, which I've read bits and pieces. I'll skip around. I think I like, in the old days, letters pages were almost like fanzines where people would kind of critique the story. And nowadays, letters pages are just praise of stories, or perhaps other little fanish questions, perhaps. And then they also have, I'm not sure what this is about. They also have a one-page sort of comic strip called Here We Go by Anton Veracruz. I read it, and now I can't even remember what it was about. And I don't know if it connects to the world of Echolans. I assume it does. Anyway, that was that. It was a pretty good week of reading, except for the fact that I got stuck on Human Remains by letting the issues pile up. I also had to read a couple of issues of Kaiju Max that had piled up too. So I'm still clearing out stuff that since Thanksgiving I got behind on my reading. But as I said, I'm already this is Friday and I'm already reading starting to read stuff that came out on Wednesday. So I hope maybe this time around I will get back on schedule. I thought I'd mention a few reviewers that I really have been enjoying. There was Nick. Is it called Nick of Comic Culture? I'll put a link down below. And then I may have mentioned before, I've really been into the weekly comic book reviews and other graphic novel reviews by Taylor Winder. This is a shirt he designed, I believe. And I will put a link for him down below. And Lorenzo's channel, I think it's called Alternate Comics or Indie Comics and Reviews, something like that. He changed his name. Before it was Alternate City. Man, I'm not good with the names of channels, but I'll put Lorenzo's link down here too. So I really enjoy his reviews, mostly of indie comics. Anyway, I'll be back soon.